teetering on the edge of global isolation. If you were to glance at the international headlines this morning, you wouldn't see the usual parade of domestic controversies or political chest-thumping. You would see a tidal wave, a literal, coordinated pushback from nearly every major economy in the world, a boycott so sweeping, so immediate that it has already sent shockwaves through Wall Street, the oil markets, and the world's shipping lanes. Donald Trump, the self-proclaimed dealmaker, woke up today not to congratulations or fanfare, but to panic. His phone was ringing off the hook. Each call a dirge leaders of the European Union, Asian trade ministers, South American economic coalitions. Every message had the same cold, blunt headline: "We are officially implementing the Make America Go Away initiative." The acronym itself, MAGA 2.0, was designed to sting, and it did. The scene in Mar-a-Lago is said to be chaotic. Advisors running from room to room, legal teams poring over treaties, economists muttering numbers that look more like doom than opportunity. Somewhere in the background, a television flickers with CNN coverage, highlighting a map of the world painted in red, zones of trade embargoes, cultural blacklists, and tourism bans. It is a stunning visual. The globe is shutting down American access. And at the center of this perfect storm sits Trump, a man who built his brand on power, prestige, and the art of the deal, now trapped in a house of mirrors reflecting his own failures. The initial reason for the boycott, according to leaked communiques from international trade offices, is a combination of reckless economic policy, repeated diplomatic slights, and what one European envoy called a persistent disregard for global norms that can no longer be tolerated. In plain English, the world has grown tired of negotiating with a leader who treats international relations like a reality TV show, and the optics are devastating. Trump's signature brand, the very MAGA slogans that once galvanized rallies, have become ironic punchlines in diplomatic corridors. Airlines are refusing to fly with the Trump name attached. Luxury brands are quietly canceling contracts. Global investors are freezing deals. The king who promised to rebuild America's dominance is staring down a map of his own isolation. In this deep dive, we are going to break down the astonishing scope of the boycott. We will examine how a coordinated, global effort could cripple an American presidency. From the outside in, we will show you the reactions from allies, adversaries, and the business world. And we will explain why this moment, Trump confronted not by impeachment, not by Congress, not even by the press, but by the entire globe, may be the most humiliating chapter of his political career. Yet the empire he imagined is now a mirage. The MAGA brand that once promised triumph has become a symbol of withdrawal, of rejection, and in the silence of the Mar-a-Lago estate this morning, the only sound is a president listening to the world tell him, "America cannot go on like this." The news broke early Monday morning, and it broke like a thunderclap. Headlines from Tokyo to Berlin, from Brazil to Canberra carried the same message. A coordinated multinational boycott targeting the United States, officially called the Make America Go Away initiative, a name that sounds like a punchline but is devastatingly real. It includes trade restrictions, cultural embargoes, travel bans, and the suspension of American media content on international platforms. Wall Street responded instantly. Futures in New York plummeted, wiping out $120 billion in market value within the first hour of trading. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost on 400 points before lunch, while the Nasdaq fell 3.8%. Crude oil prices spiked as global shipping routes shifted, creating bottlenecks in the Gulf of Mexico. Airline stocks tied to U.S. carriers were hammered, and major American export companies warned of significant revenue shortfalls. In coming quarters, the financial hit is immediate, visceral, and growing by the hour. Trump, according to sources inside Mar-a-Lago, is in a state of disbelief. Advisors describe a scene of unprecedented chaos. Press secretaries were scrambling to frame the boycott as temporary or misunderstood, while economic strategists attempted to calculate how long the global freeze could last. Before it started affecting domestic jobs, the president himself reportedly called a series of emergency calls with foreign leaders, trying to negotiate exceptions, a tactic that was largely ignored or politely declined. In one particularly telling anecdote, the president's envoy called the German chancellor to clarify some details, only to be told in no uncertain terms, "We're done clarifying, we're done." In Washington, lawmakers are stunned. Senate Majority Leader comments were muted, reflecting an administration caught off guard. On the House floor, junior Republicans quietly admitted that they had underestimated the scale of international frustration with Trump's policies. It's one thing to get criticized by the media. One aide said, it's another to have the planet actively try to erase your influence. Meanwhile, the public spectacle is escalating. The boycott initiative is being coordinated across multiple sectors. Cultural institutions are banning U.S. film and music content. Major tech platforms have restricted U.S.-based app services, and even luxury tourism markets are closing doors to American guests. Corporate America is following suit. Major sponsors and branding partners of Trump-linked enterprises are issuing statements distancing themselves from the president. Citing unforeseen reputational risk, the optics are brutal. A leader who once boasted about winning on the world stage is now fighting an international embargo, scrambling for allies who either laugh or quietly bow out. Television screens in Mar-a-Lago reportedly show color-coded maps of global participation, and each red-shaded country is a blow to Trump's image. A reminder that the deal-maker cannot, in this instance, make a deal. As the hours tick by, the consensus among analysts is growing. This is not a temporary setback. The boycott is strategic, coordinated, and deeply symbolic. The world is telling America through action rather than words that the era of unilateral MAGA-style dominance is over, and Trump at the center of it all is left reacting, negotiating and tweeting but not reversing the tide. To understand the magnitude of this boycott, we have to rewind to 2025, a year that started with promise but quickly descended into chaos. President Trump had spent the early months of his second term positioning himself as the ultimate nationalist, the protector of American industry and the master of global trade. MAGA slogans were plastered on everything, from merchandise to official government communications. But what began as a narrative of strength and self-reliance gradually revealed itself as a roadmap to isolation. It wasn't a single policy that triggered the backlash. It was a constellation of moves, all adding up to a reputation of unreliability, brashness, and unpredictability. First came the American First Trade Overhaul, a series of unilateral tariffs aimed at punishing China. The EU and even traditional allies like Canada and Japan, in practice, the tariffs disrupted global supply chains, raised prices for U.S. consumers, and prompted retaliatory tariffs that slammed American farmers and manufacturers. By mid-2025, economists were already warning of a looming recession, tied to Trump's trade gambits. Then came the diplomatic misfires. High-profile summits with European leaders devolved into televised arguments over tariffs and NATO contributions. The UN General Assembly witnessed Trump delivering speeches that seemed more like campaign rallies than global diplomacy, criticizing allies and praising autocracies. Several countries quietly began discussing a coordinated response, a plan to curb U.S. influence without resorting to military escalation. In leaked cables, diplomats described Trump as unpredictable, fragile, and dangerous to global stability. The final catalyst came late last year with the Greenland debacle. In a move widely criticized even by his own party, Trump attempted to purchase Greenland from Denmark. In secret negotiations only to be rebuffed publicly and humiliatingly, memes exploded on social media overnight. But the real damage was strategic. The world's perception of the United States as a reliable partner suffered a catastrophic blow. A coalition of trade ministers, cultural leaders, and global financiers quietly began planning what has now become the Make America Go Away initiative, a boycott designed to impose consequences. Without firing a single missile, the stakes are enormous. The global economy is intertwined with the United States. In a way that no country can ignore, American exports from tech to agriculture rely on access to international markets. Tourism, higher education, and entertainment are billion-dollar industries, dependent on global participation, even financial markets. The lifeblood of Trump's own image as a billionaire and deal-maker are vulnerable to global sentiment. When international powers coordinated the boycott, they weren't just sending a message. They were targeting the structural weaknesses of an administration that had relied heavily on optics over substance within the White House. Trump's team initially underestimated the severity. Advisors reportedly told the president that a bit of international grumbling would be fine. It